Hey guys, welcome in. I'm just gonna give some folks some time to get in here before I start going over stuff. Um, give some. So I'm gonna share the link with some friends who I know for a fact that they want to be in here. Then I'll just kind of hang out. We'll see what the chat is talking about. So for my personal work, I don't do as much with Excel as I used to. So I may have to like refer to some notes or some old work that I've done, but for the most part, there are a few different formulas that I use on a regular basis. They're powerful, they're versatile. Some of my favorite stuff to work with, and I'd like to go over a lot of that stuff. So you have things in your arsenal in your tool bag to extract, organize, and uh, visualize data. So you may be able to help stakeholders in whatever kind of business you're in or whatever business you want to be able to make business decisions. And really, that's the most important thing. Um, so, step one is going to be first locating your data source. I don't know uh, really what most people are going to be doing, but I think there's kind of something um, there's something we can all maybe not relate to, but we can all. It's really easy to access like fantasy football data. So I will go to one of my favorite fantasy football sites and look up some of their data. Let's see. Okay. So I have a link. Now in Excel, the best way that I know to pull this stuff in is you go to the data tab and you click from web. Now, there are ways that you can do this where you can scrape it without linking it here using macros, but we're not going to touch on any macros right now. So I have this link from the web, and I'll click OK. And now now it's going to connect to that website. And when it connects to it, it should give me like a browser preview. Let's look at the web view. Outdated, unsupported browser. Oh, that's trash. All right, let's see what else we can do. Fantasy projections, column 1, column 2. All right. Let's see what happens when we load this. Nope, that didn't work. All right. So let's delete this. Yeah, we're going to permanently delete that. So I'm just to kind of streamline this. I'm going to copy and paste. All right, so I'm just pasting in as values. I don't really care about the formatting here. I just need values, right? So we have different players, different teams, different positions. We have and different stats. And not only do we have different stats, right? We have passing, rushing, receiving, defense. And so you'll notice that for each of these, like passing, rushing, receiving, defense, there's all of them have, most of them have this interception here. So you'll have some repeating stuff. We will be able to write formulas that take all of that into account. So what we want to do is just make sure that passing is over top of each of the ones that encompass passing. And all I'm doing when I do this is so like, let's say I want to transpose this receiving into the two cells to the right. I just highlight the cells that I want it in. I click into the text bar here and I click Control Enter and it automatically fills it in. Excuse me. It automatically fills it in for me. So do the same thing with defense. So now I have passing yards, passing TD, passing interception, rushing yards, rushing TD, receiving receptions, receiving yards, receiving TD. We have a defense, sack, interception. Okay. So let's see how many rushing touchdowns were made on by Baltimore, or I think these are projections. So yeah, these are projections. So we are going to see how many touchdowns Baltimore is projected to score rushing touchdowns. All right. So my favorite Excel formula to use for something like this is the index match formula. So index match takes things from like HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and instead of only being one dimensional and only looking up and down or side to side, this can look in a table. It can look up and down and side to side. And I'll explain how it's able to do that. So let's put in our parameters. We said we wanted rushing, we wanted touchdowns, and we wanted from Baltimore, right? All right. So in this in this cell right here, we're going to say equals index. And then we need to tell the Excel what table we want to index, right? Where do we want to get our data from? The data starts right here. So in G3, and then we're going to drag it all the way down because we want to be able to get all of it. And it looks like this is just from week 3, which is fine. So you'll see our index is indexing the table from sheet 1, G3 to T1505. Now I'm going to hit F4 once. And when I hit F4, when I have an array like that, a from this cell to that cell, when I hit F4, you'll see that it brings these little dollar signs up. Now, what those dollar signs are, they are locks. So a cell, when it is when it's pushed to another cell, if it's not locked, the cell will move, right? Like the reference will move. So, for instance, if I was to drag this cell, drag this formula over to the cell beside it, and I didn't lock it, all of these references would move over one cell, right? So it would go from G3 to T1505 to E3 to U1505. It would move over one column. Now, locking them prevents that. So now this is locked. It's in that table. If I was to drag this over ad infinitum, it's always going to reference this table. And then you can see you see this little suggestive text here. It tells you what it's expecting in your syntax. And by syntax, I just mean like order of operations, right? So you have array, comma, and then you have your row number, and then you have your column number, right? So this goes up, down, and side to side, okay? So the row number, we're going to use a match. And what that match does is it's going to look at row headers, and it's going to match whatever text you want in that row header. Okay. So the row header we want is Baltimore, right? So we tell them we want what the text that's here, Baltimore. And after this is done, if I want to change this for like Washington, I can change D1 to WAS and it will recalculate. It will index that table again and look for Washington. I'm going to lock that on, I'm going to lock it on the row. So if I wanted to drag this over, if I wanted to do Washington here, Detroit here, and so on and so forth, then I could just drag this formula over to the right, and it would grab all of them. So lock it there, and now lookup array. Where do I want to look this up relative to the table? So I go back to sheet 1, and I see that the team name the team name is over here in column C. So we're going to start it here, and we know that it goes down to 1505. So we're just going to go 15. Yeah. So to C 1505. C3 to C1505. We're going to lock that. We're going to lock that. All right, and we want an exact match, so we're going to put a 0 there. You could do less than, you could do greater than, but we don't need that. All right, so we're going to close that match because we have what we want. Now, for the column header, we want rushing and TD. So we're going to do a match. And in this one, because we have two different references, we're going to put both of those references together using an ampersand. Now, functionally what this does is it concatenates a string. And what I mean by that is it just puts them together. It marries them together. That ampersand is functionally putting them together to make one value. So what I mean by that is rushing and TD, and we want to lock it on the column so they stay in their respective column. But if we put passing TD here, we could drag it down and it would give us passing TD. Right? Or if we wanted to do defense and sack, we would be able to do the exact same thing, and I'll be able to demonstrate that. But if I dragged it over to the side, it's not going to move over one column, right? Like this B won't become a C, and this C won't become a D because we've locked it on B and C. It can't move over now. All right, so we do a comma. And then we tell Excel where we expect those values to come from. And they'll be up here. Rushing will be G1 to T1. And we'll lock both of those. And then we need an ampersand. And we do the next G2 to T2, and we lock those, and 0. So I forgot this part. We need to do Control-Shift-Enter to make it an array formula. Now, it's only given me 1, which doesn't sound right. but let's test it. So the way we would test it, we'll filter, and we will filter for the outcome that we're looking for. We know that these are rushing touchdowns right here. Sorry, I filtered it on the wrong one. Just pull up Baltimore. Rushing, there was one rushing touchdown, right? And we got a 1. So on the money. All right, so let's say that we want to know, and I could probably copy that text. I don't think I need... I don't think I need the array formula in an index match. Okay. So let's say we want to see what receiving TD looks like. We would just do the same thing. We click into the text box and we would do Control Enter. Receiving. Oh, that's why. Okay. I'm like, I know I did the formula right. There it is. 0. Okay. Let's do rushing, and let's remove this filter. Yards, YDS. Sometimes that stat is just YD. So real quick, guys, if you're in the chat, don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you want more content like this, and I really appreciate it. I'm pretty new to this, so just want to be able to help some folks for free. I was going to do a course on this stuff, but you know, I think it's much better to be able to give this stuff away for free. So, all right, let's see. 8 rushing yards from Baltimore? No way. Let's look. No, there's no way. Anthony Brown. Oh, okay. Okay, I got it. We're doing an index. So it's grabbing the first thing that it finds, which is this 8 here. Now, if we wanted to sum all of it, we would need to use like a sum ifs formula. Now, let's take a look at how that works. So now that you see how an index works, it's going to find the first thing in the table that matches the index that you've defined. We've defined finding rushing TDs from Baltimore, receiving TD from Baltimore, rushing yards from Baltimore. Now let's sum those up. All right, so we'll do a equals sum. All right, so I'm not sure how much everyone knows, so I'm just going to do like a basic sum formula would be to sum up, just do a sum of all of this column. It's 7,006, and it's always going to be 7,006 because we're just summing the entire column, right? So a sum if, SUMIF, is just one condition. So we would be able to define one parameter. Like we would say we want to know all from a certain column with with a certain team, right? You're only able to reference one column with this, so it's fine. We would have to change all of these to the respective columns for rushing TDs, receiving TDs, rushing yards, but we would be able to reference Baltimore. Right, so we know that this is the column for passing yards. Let's go with rushing TDs because that's what we started with. So we know that K is the column for rushing TDs. So for a sum if, we would just do sum if the range, which is the range where we would find our first parameter. So Baltimore. And we're going to find that in column C. So we're going to put it sheet 1, C through C, which grabs that entire column. We're going to lock it so it doesn't move. And then our criteria. Our criteria comes from cell D1. It's Baltimore. We're going to lock it on the row. And then put a column and then the sum range. Where do we want to sum? And we're going to do that from rushing TDs. Lock it on K. Baltimore's rushing TDs is 1. All right, so let's do Washington. Let's do Houston, Philly, and KC. Houston, Philly, Kansas City. All right, we'll do receiving TD. Our receiving touchdowns comes from column N. So we can copy this cell, paste it, and then just change this reference from K to N. And it'll tell us receiving TDs. Let me know if you're watching. Say something in the chat. So let me know if you have any questions. If there's anything in particular that you want to see, be happy to walk through any problems that you might have. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so it's a little easier to read. Let's see. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I will check the comments. Leave a comment. And don't forget to like the video. Comment what you want to see in the next video. We can go over some more examples of sum, of index and match, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. We could take a look at some formatting stuff, some date time stuff. There's a lot of really good and powerful formulas and formatting that we can go over. I just want a little more direction. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Thanks, guys.